Hello, everyone. Just wanted to say thank you for joining us, and we will begin in about 2 minutes. I'm just giving persons some more time to log on, so we will begin in about 2 minutes. Thank you. everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to say welcome, and I'm glad that we're all here again for another Tuesday session. Today we are going to have Gerald, and he's going to be providing a great presentation on crisis management. Gerald is an entrepreneur, a startup specialist, former Bank of America, JP Morgan, and Merrill Lynch employee. Also, Gerald has experience in corporate finance, commercial lending, investment banking, and business development. He has helped raise over 100 million in financing for startups and has pitched to 150 venture capitals during the bubble in 2000. I am so happy to have Gerald with us today. And I'm gonna ask Gerald to unmute himself so he can say hello, because you're currently muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Hi, Gerald.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Hopefully you can hear me perfectly.
Yes, I do have everyone's mic muted currently. So
Okay.
I could unmute them so they have the ability to unmute if you want to have an interactive sessions, or I can keep them muted.
I think that would be great if you could unmute them all, and you know, we could have an open. I actually like open discussions because it's a much better learning experience for everybody.
Okay.
So we can sort of interact as a group.
Okay, great. So they're able to unmute now, and you are co-hosts, so you can share your screen, or I can pull up the presentation for you.
You can go ahead and pull up the presentation. That would be
Sure.
great.
All right.
So I can...
One second.
I love the bright yellow. You're already making my day.
I'm so happy to hear that. How is everyone doing today? Where are we joining from? Are we all at work? Are we on our lunch break? Tuning into this webinar here so we can learn about crisis management and how we can all pivot during this time. You can drop it in the chat while I just pull up this presentation. 1 minute. And here we are. Okay, we're ready.
Okay, let's see here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Well, I guess we can skip that. So what I you know, I wanted to sort of impart is sort of the mindset of most of us who face crisis. If you were in charge of a crisis and you were the president, you were the head of state, you were the chief of police, you were the CDC chief, what would you do? Because the reason why you're taking this college course is to become one of these leaders, right? So let's just make it more practical. So putting everybody in that state of mind of being a leader. Okay, somebody raised their hand.
Yes, Dion, you can unmute your mic. I think you can unmute yourself. Oh, it was an accident.
All right, so let's move on. So everybody's mindset is they're the leader right now. So let's go to the next slide. Whoa, there you go. Here you can see me in the hospital. So I was in my own crisis actually on Saturday, and I was faced with extreme dehydration. So luckily, my brother was around to save me from that crisis. He you know, we went on a bike ride. It was 110. I was trying to be a 16-year-old again when I'm 48. So, and I got myself in trouble in a crisis like this. So medically, this is a crisis for me. And luckily I had my brother to help me. He was a combat veteran, and he has experience in saving people's lives in combat. So he threw me in a cold bath full of ice to bring down my core temperature. And that was that sort of my saving grace, because had he not done that, things could have turned for the worse for me, and I wouldn't be here presenting today. So that's how we were able to manage my crisis. So now the question is, how would you manage a crisis? Go ahead and go into the next slide, please. Okay, so let's go over these questions. Is recognizing the problem leading up to. So what is a crisis? How do you know you're in a crisis? How do you anticipate a crisis? How do you prepare for a crisis? How do you respond to a crisis? And then who is responsible for solving the crisis? And then is it possible to start a business during a crisis? Because the reason why you're taking this management course is obviously for business reasons, right? You wanted to understand how to, develop yourself well-roundedly to be able to solve different types of problem, and crisis is one of them, right? So let's go ahead and go through those questions. Is there anybody in here that could sort of pitch in as to how you recognize what is a crisis?
Remember, you're all able to unmute, so feel free. Okay, I'll go first. All right, so a crisis is something that I believe it to be something that I can't control, something that I didn't see coming, something that I had no preparation for. So I'm in a situation now where I'm unable, or I feel very worried about what's next, because I don't have the answers to the questions. I don't have the solutions. It's almost as if I did not see this potential risk, so I have no plans for it.
Correct. That's a great example of a crisis. It's something that's very, very difficult. And it in a sense today we're all facing that crisis. And the crisis that we face today, especially here in America, culminates various different types of problems. So can you move on to the next slide? Because we're going to kind of go back and forth between these slides.
Eris has responded and said, a crisis for me is a situation that creates uncertainty and is characterized by ambiguity.
Absolutely. So here in this next slide is you can see here is health crisis, financial crisis, political crisis, and natural disasters. So in these pictures, this depicts exactly what's happening in America today, and it could be very similar in Jamaica. And here we're having a health crisis that's causing a political crisis for Donald Trump. This virus has also caused financial crisis for the lower class income people here in America, and obviously this is considered a national and a natural disaster. And also there's also a racism crisis in America, as you know. with what happened in Minneapolis. So these different types of crises, you have to learn or know how to manage. And in order to do that, you have to have, you know, a certain particular team that you put together that can solve these types of problems. Because, you know, even if you're the president of the United States or a head of state, you know, you're only one person that could say something. You have to also create that team that's, you know, that you're gonna persuade in order to get to your goal of solving these crises. So let's go over to the next slide. So the question here is, how do you anticipate a crisis? So data is going to be a key element in anticipating certain types of crisis. So, for example, I was at Merrill Lynch during the Great Depression of 2008. Our stock price dropped probably like 150 points in a day. And then all I knew at that point was that, you know, our unit was going to be sold off to Bank of America, you know, and obviously I had to prepare for that. Well, what do I do? You know, am I going to get laid off? Am I going to get transferred? You know, what do I do in this situation? Right. And this is a financial crisis that I had to face. But, you know, so prior to coming on to Merrill Lynch, I was with JP Morgan, right? So at JP Morgan, I was doing all these condo conversions, and these condo conversions is like a 200 unit property, and we would finance on both ends from both the commercial side, which is buying the 200 unit property, right, which is an apartment. And then what we would do then is we would convert those 200 unit apartment into condos. And then we would resell those individually, you know, and we had projects in Hawaii, we had projects in Silicon Valley, maybe 2 or 3 different units like that. And during that time, we were allowing buyers with income that was lower than you would, you know, need in order to pay that mortgage, right? So that was sort of part of a sign to me that something was going to come up in the near future in regards to some sort of a financial crunch, right? And then here it says understanding policy. So policies you have to also look into as to how these types of banking policies allow us to take risks. So they implemented Dodd-Frank after the crisis, right? To prevent these types of crisis, right? A change in legislation is another, right? So right now we have Donald Trump in office, and he's trying to remove these legislations that were put in place, right, in order to loosen these restrictions. And also the other thing you have to look into is behavioral changes, right? Are your friends all of a sudden living in mansions when they're working a minimum wage job, right? So you're wondering, well, then that from those different clues, you can anticipate crisis from happening. And when you can anticipate crisis from happening, you can then take steps to invest in yourself, invest in the future, because during crisis also lies opportunities. So just remember, during crisis lies opportunities, because sometimes when you're in the middle of a crisis, you think that, it's not going to end. It will end. And there's always good things to happen after a crisis. Go on to the next slide, please. So how do you act during a crisis, right? Just like my situation, I was, I was cramping up, I was dehydrated, and I could have panicked and it could have been fatal for me. But I stayed calm. But in this case, during, these crises we're dealing with, you have to be mindful of the data. The data is very, very important when you're dealing with crisis, especially when you're head of state, you're president of a company, you're the president of the United States or the prime minister of Jamaica, right? Or the finance minister of Jamaica, right? Because I have to talk about this regionally because it's impacting what you folks do in Jamaica, right? And then the next is speaking clearly with your team and understand, okay, well, what is the problem? What is this crisis? How do we combat this crisis, right? And then what you do is you circle right back. Let's say, for example, let's look at the pandemic crisis, right? So in the beginning, this pandemic crisis started in China, Wuhan, China, right? And then it sort of circled the earth. And if we had reacted much faster, we wouldn't have as many fatalities if we closed off, right? So those are kind of different types of strategies and thinking and steps that you can take during these types of crises, right? But you have to be mindful of that data. Like, so if you're getting data from a second party or whatever, and that data is not very accurate, you don't have somebody on the ground, right? So you're getting secondhand data. You're going to have a very difficult time trying to make decisions, especially during a pandemic, right? Because you could make assumptions, and everybody can make assumptions. And assumptions can only get you in trouble. And then the other thing is reviewing the data and then planning accordingly. So what do we do? Okay, so now we realize it's a pandemic. What do you do next? How do you plan accordingly? How do you stop this virus? What do you need? Do you need masks? Do you need gloves? Do you need sanitizers? So these different types of elements that you're going to need, you have to put in your plan. Because, I mean, if you're dealing with a pandemic and, you're using a different solution, a Band-Aid, then you've got problems, right? Or you're going to have more problems. And then also getting your team to agree. So if you're a head of state or president of the United States or Jamaica, how do you get everybody on board, on the team to agree? Because if you can't have everybody agree during a crisis, it could be fatal for everybody, right? Let's say somebody wearing a mask versus not wearing a mask, somebody wearing a glove versus not wearing a glove, right? You have to set up rules and regulations, for city governments to follow along. If you don't follow these city rules and government, then you have a continuous spread of this crisis and virus, right? And then the last part of this is executing the idea. So once you have everybody to agree, then you execute. Okay, everybody wear gloves, everybody wear a mask, and then everybody gets, $1,200 a month because, nobody's working, right? So that decision has to come down from the top down, right? And then it has to be implemented. Next slide, please. How do you solve crisis, right? As we were talking about, is understanding the problem, right? What is the problem? What's the magnitude of the problem? Looking at historical data, right? So historical data, for example, if we were to look at the pandemic, right? The last pandemic was back in 1918. So we're sort of in that 100-year mark, and we were anticipating some sort of a pandemic that was going to occur in this world. And it so happens, you know, it happened in 2020, you know, and, you know, prior to the Trump administration, Obama was also trying to implement certain types of measures in order to combat this possible pandemic. So having historical data, knowing historical data is very, very key, is a very key element in trying to solve these problems. And then the other here is consulting a subject matter expert, right? You know, you can't, you know, have, you know, someone that just because he's your friend, consult as a subject matter expert, you know. So in America, we have Dr. Fauci, who has been the leader in this Center for Disease. And he's the go-to guy. And then also our Surgeon General, right? So we have different types of leaders that the people has to believe. And if they're not subject matter expert, and even if they're not subject matter experts, sometimes people are so ignorant that they will just follow, you know, and drink acid. If it was told to them, hey, go drink acid, it might cure the coronavirus, right? To that extreme. And then also, lastly, is brainstorming a possible solution. So as we sit here and do this class, we can sit here and brainstorm after the fact of the pandemic, right? So if this ever happens in the future, you know, you have a possible answer. Next slide, please. Oh, well, look at this. Who do we have here? Who's in charge and why does it matter? So I'm sure you're familiar with the picture here, right? Alicia? So we have here Nigel, who's your Minister of Finance. And then we also have, I'm sure you've seen this in the ad, the telethon. And then you have your Chief of Police here. So if we talk about this regionally, and you're having this crisis in Jamaica, these are the folks that you look to, that's in charge, who's leading in your country. You're gonna go, okay, well, let's take a look at what Nigel's doing to bring in more jobs in Jamaica. What is he doing? Is he going over to the United States, and is there something that we can develop in Jamaica, whether it's a software, whether it's food, what, you know, different types of resources that we can provide America during this pandemic that can drive an economic paradigm in Jamaica, right? I mean, if I was in Jamaica, if I was the Minister of Finance in Jamaica, I would be over there in New York, where the epicenter is, right? What can I do for New York? I know I'm in Jamaica. I've got my own problems, but maybe there's something that I could bring to Jamaica that economically that could drive, you know, some business between New York and Jamaica, right? And then the other thing is too is your police chief, right? There's some crisis that's going on in Jamaica because economically there's some challenges there. So therefore there's local challenges, or not law-abiding people are breaking laws in Jamaica because there's a crisis, right? And we have the same type of crisis here in America, where there's violence all over the country because of this crisis, right? But the most encouraging part is what's in the middle of this picture is all your celebrities in Jamaica coming together to influence the local people to help during this crisis. And that's what matters. That's how you solve a problem. Next slide, please. So here, since we're in a business class, I'm a stock guy. I look at numbers and I invest, and you got to know who the winners are and who the losers are, right? So if we break down the corporate winners, and we look at companies like Amazon, we have to ask ourselves, why is Amazon growing at 46%? Why is Apple growing at 42%? Why is Netflix growing at 25%? Why is Facebook up 20%? And then Microsoft up 12%, right? So you have to think during this crisis, what are the moving parts during this crisis? What do you need? And what's your environment? So imagine yourself, you're in this crisis, you're not out on the road, so gas prices are going to go down, right? You're not at the bar, the restaurants are going to go bankrupt, right? You're not at the bar, you're not at the restaurants. Those are going to be bad investments, right? Well, why is Amazon up? Well, Amazon sells food, they sell different materials that you'll need, PPEs, most everything online, and you're stuck at home, right? You might as well be shopping, right? I'm sure you don't mind shopping while you're cooped up in your home, right? And then Apple, why is Apple up 42%? Well, guess what we're doing now? We're doing online learning. And most of us need what? Phones, devices, laptops. So that's why, so if you're investing, right? If you're going to be an investor, understanding your environment will help you invest in these types of companies because of the fact that you yourself are there to experience these different types of growths, right? But also you have to recognize, well, which industries are also going down, right? Industrials are down 8%. The banks are down 8%, right? Because, they're at home. Nobody's going to the bank, right? Or they're not utilizing the bank as much. And then energy is down, right? As I said, you're not driving, right? So therefore you're not pumping gas, right? And then as you could see in, these different sectors here, you could see the growth and big bubbles of companies in here that have huge amount of growth during this crisis. Next slide, please. So here is, I tried to find the best pictures here, but this is the best I could do. So anyways, so during this pandemic, here are the trends of different items that you could see that has grown and then that also has lost during the crisis. So if you zoom in on a couple of these, glove sales, right? So if you look at glove sales, it's up 570%, right? And then cough medication, it's up 525%, right? So these are just sheer example of understanding your data, right? So that you know as a business person or as a student what to invest in. Next slide, please. Are there business opportunities during crisis? So if you're a business student, you want to be an entrepreneur, it's a yes and no, right? So what type of business opportunities would I engage in during this crisis, right? So if if commercial real estate is probably down dramatically because most people are working from home, or they can't go back to work. So those property prices are probably gone down by maybe 25 to 45%. So I'd be looking at real estate as one of the opportunities during a crisis like this. And I have friends who own 13 bars, and I spoke to him recently, and he's definitely unloading some of those restaurants and bars, and that's an opportunity in the sense that he probably will sell one to me for a much at deeper discounts. So that's a possibility, right? But the question is when do you do it, and then what would you not invest in? That's another thing that you have to think about. Would you invest in the hotel now? It's probably going to take a while. I probably wouldn't invest in a hotel right now, right? Next slide, please. So here is we were talking about business. What would you start during a business? What type of company would you start? So in this case, it's a pandemic, right? Some companies here in the United States, small companies, right? They're sponsored by the government, so pharmaceutical, right? And then device testing, right? Some of the device testing products out there today are startups, right? They could be both device and software, right? COVID-19 contact tracing software, right? Virtual meeting platforms, like right now we're using Zoom as an example, right? So Zoom had an explosion of usage during this pandemic, right? Everybody wanted to, you couldn't gather with your other family, so therefore you jumped on Zoom, or you have a class like this. The other one was a PPE manufacturer and reseller of, gloves, masks, and so on and so forth, right? Next slide, please. And then how do you raise capital during this crisis, right? So here in the United States right now, a lot of companies are benefiting from government-sponsored programs, and they're winning massive multi-billion-dollar contracts for vaccines, for testing, for contact tracing, right? So this type of crisis is driving opportunities. If you're gonna sit there and you're gonna panic, you're gonna miss the opportunity to get government program sponsored money. Also angel funding, right? Venture backed, and then or a hybrid finance where you get both government and private financing. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
I'm trying.
Oh, no worries.
Not sure what's happening here. Give me a second, please. 1 second. Oh, that seems to be the last one, Gerald.
Okay, that's it. Now everybody, go ahead. Everybody, throw your questions.
That seems to be the last one.
Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed that.
Anyone has any questions? Anything that they want to ask?
Just don't ask for $1 billion because I don't have it. Wow, nobody wants to participate.
Well, for me, I took a few notes, and it's not a matter of questions, but I thought that, you know, through our conversation today, we were able to highlight some good things for entrepreneurs, you know. What is your existing business idea? And since the pandemic, have you been able to identify any crisis that you would be able to manage? Do you see any more elements that would either damage or support your business throughout this time? And I
Mm-hmm.
saw in the comments where I think it's Iris had said, research and forecasting and scenario planning are critical activities in anticipating a crisis. I
Absolutely.
am a firm supporter of that. I do try to
Yeah.
tell my students to think outside of now. How are you going to grow your business? Because
Mm-hmm.
essentially, where you are now, you don't want to stay there forever. So I
Yes.
see someone on the call who is actually one of my students, and her name is Chandris. She
Mm-hmm.
has a beauty care, natural beauty care business. And I'm
Okay.
thinking, you know, people are at home. Hi, Chandris. And I'm thinking, you know, people are at home. They want to take care of their skin. A lot of people in the comments said that they're actually working from home. Why not take the time out to see if I can work on my skin? I'm not in the sun as much. You know, I would be able to get a true picture, tell all about how this product is doing for my skin without any interference from the sun or going out in the open where, you know, I could, if I take the bus or I walk, whatever fumes or exhaust, you know, maybe affect my skin. You never know. So I'm
Yeah.
just saying, you know, how can I pivot to want to encourage people who are at home? What messaging am I going to use? But also, is it that now, because of the pandemic, my supply is out, I can't go anywhere, you know, I ship from overseas, are there delays? What plans do I need to put in place? So
Yes.
I'm thinking, you know, yes, there are definitely opportunities. You asked if there were opportunities. I see a lot of opportunities for a lot of students that I know have businesses. And the other thing that was so important to me was speaking clearly with your team. As a leader, your team needs to know what's happening. Right now,
Yes.
especially if you have employees and they're feeling unsure, this is the
Yep.
time where you need to ease them into saying, okay, this is our reality. There's a bit of uncertainty. We, you know, not sure how tomorrow is going to be, what our employment rates or unemployment rate is going to look like, depending on how large or small your organization is. But
Yep.
do you have any possible solutions? How can we stay together? How can we work together? So I think crisis management is not just about the success of the business and the revenue
Mm-hmm.
part of it, but you need to take into consideration emotional intelligence during this time.
Yes.
So, I mean, there were various elements that I was able to pick up on throughout our discussion. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions that they want to drop in the chat, or feel free to unmute your mic and drop any questions if you like. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Gerald is a star
I'm
specialist.
waiting. I'm waiting. I mean, if that skincare that you're talking about, I mean, so one of the presenters that you guys are going to have is Mark Skorheim, which is a friend of mine.
Yes, that's our
So
last session actually. Next
yeah,
Monday.
yeah. So you know, we were thinking about a skincare product. You know, because he's in the food. You know, he's in the food distribution business. So it's, you
Yeah.
know, you get all that, and it's a big market you're talking about. Skincare is a big market, multi-billion-dollar market. So if if you know, shoot me a business plan.
Okay, I'll share your contact if that's
Yeah,
okay. I'll share your
yeah,
contact.
yeah.
I'm seeing here where Iris
Especially
is.
technology. If you have, if there's anybody in your team or anybody of your students with a software product or whatever, shoot it to me. I mean, you know, if I'll take a look at it.
Come on,
You
guys, this is
know,
an opportunity right here, and I'm getting the
yeah,
permission to share the contact.
yeah. You
I'm
could,
seeing in our chat here that Eris is saying, if we forget about ourselves and just think about the small, informal proprietor, that little of all Jamaican townships, how do you get these kinds of businesses to move from a mode of panic to thinking long term or see this crisis as opportunity?
yeah. Stop looking regionally only.
Yeah.
You cannot look
Definitely.
regionally. So as like if I was a local Jamaican, right, and I'm in the middle of this pandemic, and I am an entrepreneur, I'm not just going to look at Jamaica, because the scope of the business which you can grab from Jamaica is very small, right? Where's your next, you know, customer? It's in America. It's right next door, you know. So if America is looking for more coconut, and you can produce coconut in Jamaica, right? That's what I would be. I'd be promoting that, right?
I'm seeing
You
where
know.
someone also says, I have a technology business. What is your email?
Oh, okay. You can hand it over to him or her.
Okay. Should I drop it in the chat?
Uh, Yeah, that's fine. Or just send. Yeah, just yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions anybody has? Especially, I would ask if I had a business. Maybe I should start a business.
Yeah, you should.
You know, pitching to an angel investor during a pandemic. How do you convince someone who maybe has their own reservations during this time, you know, about spending more money on a startup? How would you approach? Is there a specific approach that you would have towards guiding me on how to make that pitch? How do I, you know,
So
have that confidence?
I'll give you one example, right? So right now you have your standard mask that we're selling, right? As you could see during the pandemic, there's various different types of masks that are being sold today. So many, or at least some entrepreneurs have thought of, well, you know, there's the standard mask, but you know, is it reusable? Is it disposable? You know, you got to look at it from that aspect of what's the usage, you know, how do you use it, right? And that's how you have to look at opportunities, because you can't just look at, oh well, you know, everybody, oh, they already invented the mask. Oh, they already invented the glove, or they already invented the bike or the car. Oh, I'm not gonna go waste my time trying to invent that because somebody else invented that. You have to think out of the box of what else can you do to innovate, to change, to adapt to the situation today in order to profit, you know.
Tony Ann Williamson made a good point. She says, I am a customer service trainer, and during this pandemic, I have been delivering the workshop virtually as expected. This is a whole new perspective to the business, less operational costs, so I can now afford to invest more in the actual delivery and course content.
Yeah,
That's great, Tony. I mean, right now, I would not have even thought about that, but you can maybe purchase tools to give your customers a better end user experience that you maybe could
yeah,
not have afforded before. Maybe you might even think about never going back to face, because also for me and the program that we have here at the Mona School of Business and Management, we have to think about how will we incorporate going virtual? Will we ever go back after the pandemic? What type of experience and delivery are we looking to give our students this year going forward, you know? So maybe there are ways that you can make a permanent change or a semi-permanent change to your business based on what it is that you are facing. I'm seeing where June is asking, where can young people outside of the university system get coaching and advice on starting a business? Okay, I think that one is for me. Well, you can send me an email, June, and I can give you some more details about that. I would need to know exactly what level you are at to make an informed recommendation. Oh, and
yeah,
Gerald is
yeah.
also saying,
Open to mentoring people. I do it all the time.
you guys are getting away with a lot here.
Yeah,
Hello.
I mentor executives all the time.
Hi, Chandris.
Hi. Just to add, I wanted to just quickly share my experience with him. As to how I have like pivoted during crisis.
Sure.
Right. So I'm the business that Ashley was talking about. We are G-Weed Cosmetics, where we use a local herb grown here in Jamaica to make face soaps, hair serums, and skin moisturizers. So we are really catering to the hair, skin, and face care needs of our customers. Prior to COVID, we had just been doing in-person delivery where me being the entrepreneur would get the product to the consumer. It was on a case where the person would order online because we are based on Instagram, and I would then get the product out to the consumer. During COVID, due to the restrictions, we had to be on lockdown. So I was kind of like static where that was concerned, getting around and getting the product out there. How I pivoted was to actually partner with a company that does mobile application development, and got the store on their app so customers could purchase. Now, for me, this really helped a lot because I'm able to get the direct information of our customers. We're able to get the product out through the post office or outsourcing bearer and delivery services. So for me, it's actually COVID actually gave the business a boost in terms of stepping up our game and allowing more access to consumers both online and internationally as well, because we're not just now limited to Jamaica. We have sent out packages to the US, Canada, and looking to do one in the UK. So definitely I can see where there are opportunities, and businesses just have to look for the opportunity in crisis.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're doing a fantastic job. You're living the dream.
And we're only 7 months in operation.
Send me the product, and we could distribute that all over the United States, especially, I mean, Amazon, Whole Foods, right?
Right. I'm looking at Amazon to get on Amazon.
Okay, we'll get you on Amazon. you send me 1,000 cases.
Whoa. Okay, I'll have to try.
Chandri, that sounds like an email. That sounds like an email, Chandri.
That sounds like the company's biggest first order.
So in terms of getting your product out, especially right now, the distribution is wide open right now. They're looking for these types of new products that's going to protect them,
Where specifically though? Because I know Target, it's very competitive to get your products in a store like Target.
It's all in who you know.
Oh.
and you're talking to somebody that knows.
Okay, interesting.
So it's just we have to test the product. We have to look at the product, and see how, is it organic? Is it,
Yes, it's organic.
What's the shelf life, right? You got to look at those aspects that's required on these different types of markets, because if you're going after, like, your product is a high end, we could probably shooting for the high end market, right?
Yeah, that's where I started as a premium.
That's the best spot. You get a premium, and then your cost is low. Yeah, perfect. Good job.
I'm seeing the comments. We have a few comments, guys, and I'm seeing where Dion actually made a good point, and maybe this is something that everybody really needs to take note of, where an important aspect of crisis management is to ensure that this is included in policy documents. Think about all the possibilities, or as many possibilities, to incorporate, because guess what? It's not that you have to be executing or operating as if you are in a crisis, but to have the plan in place before time. That's excellent, John. I really do appreciate that comment. A lot of people should think about planning in that direction. Just to say, what if? You need to have that document.
Right.
Definitely.
Correct. Yep.
I'm seeing a question here. I believe that this may be for Chandris. What is the name of the company that did the mobile application? You can possibly reply in the chat. Chandris, to let them know what is the name of the app. And someone says this meeting is a blessing. Thank you to the Vincent Hosang Initiative for giving small businesses the opportunity. Tony, and you're so welcome. And I'm so glad that you're finding value in this session. You know, I know Gerald is happy to be here.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm so happy that, you know, you guys are able to get this opportunity to have the discussion and to utilize the network that we have. You know, getting an international perspective is very important, especially when oftentimes we think about our local context a little bit too much, especially as startups.
We definitely have to thank Vincent Hosang. I love that guy.
I'm seeing another question. What is the best type of business organization to enter in order to counter excessive taxes in Jamaica?
Go to the Cayman. Go to the Cayman. Go to your neighbor.
Well, you heard it from a specialist.
I've done you know, flipped from both sides, you know, from US to Cayman, Cayman to the US, you know, parent, child, different types of strategies, tax strategies. Definitely going to the Cayman is a good idea. Unless Jamaica has something special. We have to speak to Nigel.
Look that up and get back to you.
Yeah, we have to speak to Nigel about that.
Any more questions, guys? Any more comments? I think that we had a very good discussion today. And remember, our last session is going to be corporate social responsibility. I do want to tie that up into crisis management. It is important for us to remember, as I said, to not just focus on yourself or your business economic-wise, but to also be smart about how can you stay relevant? How can people continuously think about your business? How are they viewing you at this time? You know, how can you engage in some corporate social responsibility activities right now that may be low cost, you know? So that will be our last session or final webinar, and it's not gonna be Tuesday, it's gonna be on Monday. So please guys, scan the barcode, click register, can write off the link and register. I'm seeing where Gabrielle Willis has raised her hand. Would you like to ask a question, Gabrielle?
I realize that you've been recording the session. I just wanted to ask if they could be sent out, or would you be sending them the recording out?
Or
as well as I would like
Gabrielle?
So long as they get royalties.
I'm not hearing the rest of your question, Gabrielle. I'm not hearing you, but regarding the recording.
Okay, I'm not hearing you guys. It just broke up and I don't know what's happening.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Send me in the chat because I'm not hearing anything at all anymore.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Any other questions?
What happened to all the males? No questions? There's no male in the class?
Female entrepreneurs are climbing to the top.
It seems like it. They're stepping up.
Well, if there are no more questions, I would just like to say thank you to Gerald for coming today and engaging us, having a thought-provoking conversation. And I do believe that everyone received some value from today. I always tell my students that note takers are money makers. I do hope everyone took some notes. I always find my little sheet of paper, scrap paper, and I write. So remember guys, note takers are money makers. I hope to see you all on Monday for our final session. And thanks again, Gerald.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And congratulations for those who are out there making money.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.